Welcome to another episode of our World War to History podcast. Today we turn to a topic that seems uncomplicated at first glance, yet is surrounded by myths, half-truths, and dramatic imagery, the Battle of the Atlantic. For many people, this battle is remembered as the moment when Germany nearly starved Britain into submission, when U-boats supposedly pushed the British Empire to the brink of collapse. But as we will show, the real history is far more complex and, in many ways, far more surprising. The Battle of the Atlantic was the longest continuous campaign of World War II, lasting from September 1939 until May 1945. It spanned millions of square kilometers and involved ships, aircraft, submarines, convoys, escort groups, intelligence operations, radar systems, and industrial production on a scale the world had never seen before. At its heart, this struggle was about one fundamental question: could Britain be supplied? Britain depended entirely on imported food, fuel, steel, and weapons. Without constant shipments from the United States, Canada, and the colonies, Britain simply could not fight. Germany knew this and hoped the U-boats could sever those arteries of survival.
So the classic image that Britain survived by a miracle, barely escaping starvation, is not accurate. Were the Germans ever truly close to achieving that?
Surprisingly, no. Germany never came close to collapsing Britain's supply lines. And here is the paradox. Even in the supposedly worst year, 1942, when U-boats sank over 6 million tons of Allied shipping, the Allies were still building ships faster than the Germans could destroy them. This is the part most people miss. The German U-boat arm inflicted serious damage, yes. But Britain, the United States, and Canada were producing new merchant ships at an unprecedented pace. Shipyards operated 24 hours a day. Liberty ships could be launched in weeks. So despite terrifying losses, the overall Allied merchant fleet kept growing. Germany simply lacked the industrial capacity to win a long war of tonnage.
But if the Germans never truly had a chance to starve Britain, why does the myth persist? Why do even historians sometimes repeat it?
Because the British themselves helped create that myth. For Britain, a maritime empire, the sea was everything: identity, economy, military power. When U-boats threatened merchant ships, it felt like an attack on the nation's very lifelines. Winston Churchill later wrote that the Battle of the Atlantic worried him more than the Battle of Britain. He believed that as long as supplies reached Britain, the war could continue. Factories would be rebuilt, ships repaired, cities restored. But as supply lines broke, Britain would collapse regardless of battlefield victories. That fear shaped British memory for decades. However, fear is not the same as reality. Throughout the war, Allied shipbuilding, intelligence breakthroughs like Enigma, long-range patrol aircraft, escort carriers, and improved radar steadily eroded the U-boat threat. Germany could never keep up.
Still, there was a period, especially around 1940-1941, when German U-boats seemed unstoppable. How did that phase fit into the larger picture?
You're right. Early in the war, Germany had a golden period. Britain stood alone after the fall of France, and only a small number of U-boats, often fewer than 30 at a time, caused enormous damage. Many convoys lacked escorts. Air coverage was limited. The U-boats struck at night, on the surface, like fast attack craft, slipping between merchant ships and firing torpedoes at point-blank range. But the key fact remains: even then, Germany did not have enough submarines to crush the British supply network. Admiral Dönitz, commander of the U-boat fleet, repeatedly warned Hitler that he needed 300 operational U-boats to have a real chance at victory. He never had them. As soon as Allied radar, long-range aviation, and escort carriers entered the battlefield, the golden age ended and the hunters became the hunted.
So when did the Germans lose the Battle of the Atlantic? Was there a single moment when the tide turned completely?
In March 1943, U-boats launched one final massive effort. Dozens of submarines attacked heavily escorted convoys simultaneously. Losses were serious, and many believed the Allies were on the brink of disaster. But then everything changed. New long-range aircraft closed the mid-Atlantic gap. Escort carriers provided constant air patrols. Radar improved. HF radio direction finding exposed U-boat positions. The Allies finally had overwhelming numbers of ships, aircraft, and technology. In May 1943 alone, Germany lost 41 U-boats and unsustainable bloodbath. Dönitz withdrew his submarines. The German U-boat arm never recovered. From that moment, the outcome was decided.
So the idea that Germany almost won is simply wrong.
Precisely. The greatest naval campaign of the war was dramatic, deadly, and essential, but Germany never stood on the brink of starving Britain into surrender. The Allies' industrial capacity, technological innovation, and relentless convoy system ensured survival. The U-boats inflicted heavy losses, but they could not break the backbone of Allied logistics. The Battle of the Atlantic ultimately revealed a truth Germany refused to accept: industrial supremacy, technological adaptation, and unified Allied logistics made the U-boat strategy unwinnable. Even during the darkest months of 1942, when tonnage losses peaked, the Allies were already outproducing what Germany could ever hope to sink: once radar, HFDF tracking. By mid-1943, Germany faced an equation it could not escape. For every submarine it deployed, the Allies produced several new ships and refined their defenses further. Every tactical success the U-boats achieved was buried beneath the mounting strategic reality: Britain would not starve, American industry would not slow, and the Atlantic lifeline would remain open. In the end, the Battle of the Atlantic was less a duel between navies and more a contest between systems, one shrinking, overextended, and driven by wishful thinking, the other expanding, coordinated, and grounded in overwhelming industrial power. Germany never came close to strangling Britain. The myth survived, but the war's numbers do not lie.
So the outcome was sealed long before the last torpedo was fired.
Exactly. Once the Allies seized the technological and logistical advantage, the U-boat threat collapsed. And from that moment forward, the Atlantic was not merely a battleground, it became the artery through which victory flowed. The Battle of the Atlantic stands today as one of the most misunderstood campaigns of the Second World War. Despite the enduring myth that Germany nearly starved Britain into submission, the historical record shows a very different reality. The U-boats inflicted damage, sometimes severe, but never in quantities capable of breaking the Allied supply chain. What ultimately defined the outcome was not any single battle or convoy, but the immense gap between German expectations and Allied capability. Britain, backed by the industrial might of the United States and supported by an expanded global merchant fleet, possessed the resources to absorb losses and adapt rapidly. Germany did not. As the war progressed, technology, coordination, and mass production tilted the balance decisively. Radar, improved sonar, escort carriers, long-range patrol aircraft, and hardened convoy doctrines turned the Atlantic from a hunting ground into a graveyard for submarines. By 1943, the strategic momentum had shifted permanently. In the end, the campaign was not a close contest, but a prolonged demonstration of the limits of German strategy. The U-boat arm fought fiercely, but it fought a war it could not win, a war against numbers, industry, and innovation that far exceeded anything the Third Reich could muster.
In the end, the campaign was not a close contest, but a prolonged demonstration of the limits of German strategy. The U-boat arm fought fiercely, but it fought a war it could not win, a war against numbers, industry, and innovation that far exceeded anything the Third Reich could muster.